Hello, welcome to my review of Mega Man 11, released in 2018 for the Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC. As of the time of this review, this is the last game in the classic Mega Man series. It is 1 through 11, and when I started doing these reviews, it was hard to imagine actually reviewing the whole series, but I'm excited to do it. I'm excited to review this last game. And as always, I've appreciated all the likes and subscribes and comments I've gotten along the way. Now, before I get started, I will go over my rubric for these reviews one more time. Primarily, I consider what I call the modern fun factor. How much fun is the game to look at and listen to and play today? Then I consider the context in which the game exists, both historically when it was released and today in our modern gaming context, and see if the context of the game's release and how it is accepted today adds any value to the game. Lastly, I'll consider my own nostalgia or personal bias towards the game and reflect on whether or not that is going to change my review score. So, with that being said, let's get into the review for Mega Man 11. The first thing you're going to notice about Mega Man 11 is the new modern graphic style. Mega Man 11 uses a 3D graphic style to create its tried and true 2D gameplay. And though the polygons are used to create the game's look, the gameplay never wavers from the 2D style, the way that other 2D, 3D games like Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze or Klonoa implement 3D moments. Mega Man 11 never does that. The game stays purely 2D in its gameplay. It looks different, but the gameplay approach is the same as the other classic Mega Man games. Overall, I really like the graphical style in Mega Man 11. The colors are very vibrant, and Mega Man's attacks in particular use the 3D effect to make them seem more visceral. I especially like how the underpowered shots burst against the enemies, and some enemies explode with a lot of colors and details. The 3D graphics also seem to affect some various just particle effects, or when you use Blockman's power-up, the blocks seem to fall maybe a little bit different every time. It's really cool. The 3D graphics really add a lot of visually interesting things to the game. Now, the artist didn't take this new 3D look as a license for laziness. The art direction here is as strong as ever. The levels have a ton of cool details, like how Blockman's level has these cool pyramids in the background, but the background changes throughout the level. And there's a cool detail in Acid Man's level where you see him swimming in the background as the stage starts. And my favorite level background is the camping theme in Torchman's level that even has a little cute camp of Mets in the background around a bonfire during the mid-boss. The art direction and the levels here just look beautiful all around, but it also leads to some really cool creative level design, like the fuses in Fuse Man's stage that look really cool and are on theme, but also create some really interesting challenges when they are charged and make lasers that you have to get around, or the drills in Impact Man's level that telegraph their trajectory. There's a lot of really creative and interesting ways that the game uses visuals to create interesting platforming challenges. The art direction stays really strong also with the enemy designs. Returners like the Mets and the Bats and Sniper Joe look great here. There are some really creative chemical dripper enemies, and these really cool enemies that ride in rotating tires, and these cute robots that look like Wario. What's particularly cool is to see the creative art design of the dripper robots and the robot who rides in the wheel add to some creative game design. The dripper robot shoots chemicals into the liquid that makes them dangerous, and the wheel guy is only vulnerable for a moment as his wheel spins. This adds some really cool gameplay dynamics. There's also some really visually striking and fun to fight mid-bosses. I really like this robot that has this balloon frog robot that he rides around in and he pumps it up. It's really cool and fun to fight. And I also really like the flaming fire turkey from Torchman's level. From a strictly visual standpoint, the Robot Masters here also look pretty good. And I particularly like the style of Acid Man and Tundra Man. Acid Man has this cool slime helmet, and I loved Tundra Man's figure skating theme. Artistically, the bosses aren't really an explosion of creativity in terms of their visual design, and they aren't my favorite batch of Robot Masters to look at, but they are overall pretty cool. Like the levels and the low-level enemies though, the gameplay here is designed around the Robot Masters with some really creative and unique, interesting things. Impact Man has a cool phase where he's leaving these little drills in the ground that Mega Man can shoot or jump over. Acid Man swims in the acid under the stage and kicks it up, leaving this really cool looking wake, and it's just very interesting. Fuse Man zooms around on the chain link fence in the background of the stage. And my favorite Robot Master fight is Block Man, who grows into this giant stone golem. He has different phases, and once you beat the stone golem phase, he has a desperation attack at the end. It's just really cool. The Robot Master fights here are interesting and surprising, which is a good thing 11 games in. In terms of presentation, the only thing that I didn't love in this game was the cutscenes. They went with a kind of static, low movement style of the old school games, which is fine, but I think it's just a little bit boring, and Dr. Light's model just looks a little weird to me for some reason. I can't quite put my finger on it. The intro uses still images, which honestly just look kind of boring, almost like they're concept art, and they're kind of less visually appealing than the still images that were done in the 8-bit style in the previous games. The cutscenes don't really harm the overall appeal of the game much, but they don't add to it either, and they just feel like a bit of a missed opportunity. Now, speaking of the cutscenes, the storyline told here is actually really cool and unique for the series. We find out that Light and Wily have been fighting since way back in their college days. Wily wanted to make something called the double gear system that would make robots better workers, but Light wanted to research giving robots independent thought. Wily was overruled, and he gets mad and he leaves the research group and he smashes the double gear system on the ground. Then at the start of the game, Wily takes over the Robot Masters, and Light uses a repaired version of the double geared system that Wily broke all those years ago to power up Mega Man for the battle. It's really interesting how this game frames them as longtime rivals, and Light is actually kind of a bit of a petty opportunist in the way that he held onto Wily's broken invention that was rejected by the board. That rejected it because Light had a different idea. Wily is emotional and mean, but Light is a bit of a square in this game. Now, mentioning the double gear system, I want to talk a little bit about the controls of the game. Like Mega Man 4 through 8, here Mega Man has a charge shot and a slide. What's new here is the double gear system. Mega Man can use it to either slow down time or get an extra powerful shot. It only works for a few seconds at a time, and if you don't turn it off on time, it'll burn out and take longer to recharge. This system is really cool and really well implemented with the shoulder buttons. I use the Nintendo Switch Pro controller, and it was fun to get used to using the shoulder buttons to activate the double gear system. And you really got to be mindful of how long you use it, and there's a lot of moments where the game's designed specifically around you being able to either slow down time or blast enemies with the extra charged up charge shot from the double geared system. There's also 2 buttons assigned to summoning the rush coil and the rush jet, and there are buttons again assigned to switch through the weapons. Overall, the controls here are very, very modern. There's more immediately available to you just on the control pad than in any other of the classic Mega Man games. And overall, I felt like it was great. The double geared system is also great. The levels are hard, and there's a lot of things moving around and a lot of things that can get at Mega Man, so being able to slow down time is extremely useful. There are also enemies and attacks that are designed around being shot in slow motion. Going back to the guy who rides around in the rolling tire, there's an opening where if you slow down time, it's much easier to hit that opening and destroy him. There are also a lot of enemies who have attacks that Mega Man can shoot, like the pickaxe throwers or the chemical dripper robots. You can shoot their attacks out of the air and make them less effective. There's also a lot of moments in the game where you're going to have to rush through really intense areas where something's going to kill Mega Man, like the Firewall and Torchman stage, or these rooms that are falling on a conveyor belt in Blockman stage, and slowing down time can really make it so that you can get through those. The double gear charge shot is really strong and really great, and there's actually a lot of enemies from the classic Mega Man series that might have shields or situations where you can't hurt them, and with this double geared charge shot you can charge up a super blast and hit them and actually take them out without waiting for them to come out from behind their shield. And in this way I think the double gear system actually speeds up the pace of the game. The double gear system gives you a lot of options in how you want to approach each situation, and again I want to go back to that this game is pretty challenging. I've played through all the Mega Man games to this point within the last year, and I'd say Mega Man 11 is one of the more challenging games in the series. And the double gear system gives you not really a crutch, but a way for you to really think through the challenges and come up with your own approach. I've also complained that in previous Mega Man games, I find myself sometimes maybe waiting around for something to happen and waiting for my opportunity to get Mega Man past the challenge. The double gear system completely eliminates this problem. You can either charge up a charge shot or slow down time to maneuver around certain attacks. It's really cool, and again, it's kind of ironic that being able to slow down time actually speeds up the pace of the game. Mega Man 11 is at its best when the level design and the placement of the enemies is designed around using the double gear system. It's very challenging and very unique, but it's overall really cool gameplay. The art direction and creativity extend to the Robot Master weapons. Here they do more than just change Mega Man's color. They also change things about the shape of his helmet or the shape of his blaster and just make him look different, and they all look really cool. The attacks are also really cool and really creative. You can charge up these falling blocks that will fall on enemies and destroy some of them, and again, speed up the pace of the game. Some enemies you might not be able to hit them from certain angles, but you can drop these blocks on them. There's also this cool bouncy ball shotgun attack that you can use, and if you miss an enemy, the balls can bounce off a wall and you can shoot many at a time. It's really cool. There's also this cool Robot Master attack where when you use it, Mega Man will dash through the air, and that can actually affect some of the platforming moments where you can just dash through the air rather than using the rush jet. It's really cool. And all of the Robot Master attacks can be powered up using the double gear system. So again, you can really supercharge them and kind of lean into them, but you got to be careful not overusing that double gear system because it will run out. The item shop is back in this game, and you can significantly stock up on things and power Mega Man up. You can also get some chips that will affect how he controls and how the double gear system works. I didn't buy everything available to Mega Man, but I did buy a lot. And it's pretty easy to come by bolts, but I felt like it was pretty balanced here in Mega Man 11 because it's also pretty easy to die. So I felt like the shop wasn't really a crutch, but it was something that was fun to use. Between the double gear system and the item shop and the Robot Master weapons, there's a lot here that really adds to the skill ceiling in Mega Man 11. I was able to beat the game, but even after playing through the previous 10 games, it was still quite the challenge for me. But a super player, someone who really wants to sink their teeth into this game, will find a lot of depth. There's a chip actually that you can buy that alludes to unlocking something if you can get through the levels fast enough, and I did notice that a lot of the levels were really designed around moving Mega Man through the levels really quick. Overall, the game is structured pretty much like the other classic Mega Man games. There's no intro level. The 8 Robot Masters are right there from the beginning, the item shop is available from the beginning, and then you go to the Wily Castle after the Robot Masters. The Wily Castle here is very cool. There's no fake out either. There's no extended Wily Castle or fake enemy that you go to fight and then you really go to Wily's Castle. It's just 8 Robot Masters, then Wily's Castle. Once you reach Wily's Castle, it's worth noting that it's actually structured a little bit differently here. You can select to go to Wily's Castle, and then each of the levels, when you beat them, you can actually go back to the previous levels in the game or the shop and then go right to where you were in Wily's Castle, rather than having to start over when you go back. This definitely alleviates some of the challenge and I think some of the gravity of going to Wily's Castle. I actually didn't really like this change, especially by the time I got to the point where I could go to Wily's Castle. I had built up my skill in the game and was ready to do that challenge. I actually didn't go back and use the item shop once I got to Wily's Castle, but I think that this option maybe shouldn't even be on the table. I think it would make Wily's Castle feel a little bit more heavy and a little more intense if they wouldn't let you go back. It's also worth noting that Wily's Castle here is relatively pretty short. There's not actually a lot to it. It's not a big epic finale. It's pretty quick once you get to Wily's Castle. Wily 1 is a cool level that brings back the disappearing, reappearing blocks and the Yellow Devil fight, which is always cool. And this is a pretty cool version of the fight where he kind of clones himself and has these running little mini Yellow Devils, and you have to pick out the one that will do damage. So Wily 1 is a pretty cool level. Wily 2 has this cool skull bulldozer that's crushing things, and then a crushing wall that comes together that you got to get up, and it's straight out of Mega Man X2, which I really liked. There's a decent enough fight at the end of it too with this cool robot boss that's in an orb. Wily 3 is the classic boss rush, which again feels like it comes pretty quick this time. And then Wily 4 is the final Wily fight. And there's a little bit of a conveyor belt that you ride down to get to the fight, but it's not much of a level. The final Wily fight is cool. Wily's inside of this cool skull drone, and then the final form is a Wily that flies around like we've seen before, with a really cool trippy pyramid in the background. The Wily Castle here is fun, and it's definitely not bad, where some Mega Man games have the Wily Castle kind of being the worst part of the game. That's not really true in Mega Man 11. It's great throughout, and I liked it, but some Mega Man games also have the Wily Castle being this big finale, and the Wily Castle here, again, just feels kind of rushed and not really like a big finale. And then also there's not as much gravity to it, because again, you can just kind of pop in and out of the Wily Castle. It's particularly underwhelming because I think Mega Man 10 had one of the best Wily Castles in the series, where you wind up going to outer space. I thought that was really cool. I also want to mention that there's no Proto Man or base. I thought they would show up in Wily's Castle, but they didn't. It's probably not really a fair criticism, but I really love Proto Man, and I wish he had made some sort of appearance in this game. If he's there as a secret, I didn't find him, so you guys can let me know in the comments if Proto Man or base are hidden somewhere in the game. You beat Wily. He does this kind of cute, kind of cool double gear dodge where he slows down time and then he's begging for mercy, and Mega Man sees right through it. And then we get this really interesting moment where Light and Wily come together and kind of talk, and Light talks about how Mega Man is the combination of their efforts. He's their gears combined. He's a robot that is intelligent and can think for himself, and is a powerful robot who uses the double gear system. It actually parallels the intro screen of the game, which has those two gears spinning, and I really like this kind of poetic, artistic touch to the game. I also just kind of get this sense that both Light and Wily have a lot of ego. I think that in the past games, Wily's just a villain and Light is just a good guy. But in this game, we see again a different side to Dr. Light. He's a bit of a square or a goody two-shoes, I think. And it kind of makes the, well, you got me, here's the medicine ending of Mega Man 10 make more sense. These two are trying to one-up each other. They're not really trying to kill each other or do anything like that. It's a very interesting dynamic. Then you get the credits where Mega Man is flying on Rush, and it plays a nice song. It's pretty cool. And then you're going to get more credits where you see the robots from the game. Now you get this final cutscene that I actually found really interesting. It's kind of strange. For the first time in the series, you see that Light has repaired the robot masters that Mega Man defeated, and he's added the double gear system to them, which is a little strange. You know, we get the impression that Light went into Dr. Wily's castle and took some of his research. Now he's adding the double gear system to these robots, when Light was the one that kind of got the double gear system shut down initially. Or maybe it's a trap and Wily wanted Light to have the double gear system to these robots. I don't know. It's just strange. There's also a picture at the end that shows them all kind of peacefully together. I think it's the first time that we've seen this confirmation, which I know is in the lore, that the robots that are defeated, Light restores them. But it's a very interesting ending, and it's interesting compared to the previous endings of the game. I believe it's Mega Man 3 that has this kind of somber ending where you're looking at this flip book of the older robots, kind of giving me the impression that Mega Man was sad about what had happened to those robot masters. And this one, all's well that ends well, and it looks like it ends pretty well. It's a different dynamic to the ending, but I did like it, and I like the storyline here overall. Now, in terms of gameplay, I do want to mention that there are some extra modes. There's a balloon challenge to the levels where you pop balloons. There's also a boss rush mode. I didn't go super deep into the challenges, but they did seem fun, and I'm glad they're here. And again, it's that extra depth. Mega Man 11 has a lot for players to sink their teeth into. There's a lot of cool stuff in Mega Man 11. I also want to mention the music and the audio. Overall, the music in Mega Man 11 disappointed me. I know music is subjective, but I felt like this music was pretty modern, generic, EDM-influenced music. None of it was terrible, but none of it really stood out in a good way or got stuck in my head. It's not bad or distracting, but it was kind of boring music, and it is very disappointing considering that the Mega Man series has some of the best game music ever, in my opinion. The voice acting is good. None of it is bad or distracting. None of it is iconic or great. But I will take that over, the distractingly bad voice acting of Mega Man 8. Now, I will get a little more into the context, but I do want to take a step back and look at Mega Man 11 overall. First impressions of this game, I think for some players, especially those who aren't Mega Man fans, is that Mega Man 11 has a bit of a generic tone to it. The music, the voice acting, the art direction, at first glance is a little bit generic and maybe a little bit uninspired. I wound up really loving it because I do think there's a lot of really artistically creative stuff, both in the gameplay and the visual design of the game. But if this was the first Mega Man game someone saw, I would understand how they would say, wow, this is just looks like just a boring kind of retro influenced game. And going back to that model of Dr. Light in the cutscenes, you know, he just looks a little, I don't know, low detail, I guess. And again, it just has this kind of generic first impression. It's not a generic game. There's a lot of dynamic, cool gameplay and a lot of cool, interesting things to look at in the game. But I do understand how maybe some people would just look at it and listen to it for a moment and think, okay, there's not a lot here that stands out. Overall, the modern fun factor of Mega Man 11 is great. There are some slight missteps in this game's presentation in terms of the music and maybe again a first glance at the art direction and the voice acting, but I still think the presentation is great and I loved the art direction, the creativity, and a lot of the cool stuff in here. And gameplay wise is where Mega Man 11 I think really shines. It's challenging, but challenging in a fun way. The double gear system is creative and fun and dynamic. The store here is balanced and gives you a lot of options for how you want to trick out Mega Man. The Robot Master weapons here are probably my favorite batch of weapons, and it is really cool how they changed the way Mega Man looks in a lot of cool ways, and just there's so much fun stuff in this game. And then the challenge of the platforming and the enemy placement is just really cool and creative, and it's fun that 11 games in, this game is still just feeling fresh and cool. So the overall modern fun factor of Mega Man 11 I think is great. Now, considering the context that Mega Man 11 occupies within the Mega Man series and our modern gaming landscape, it's kind of interesting. I know the game sold well. I've actually heard that it's the best-selling Mega Man game, which is interesting. And I know it got good reviews, but I feel like this game deserves a little more hype, and some maybe missteps and bad timing have kind of made the game not as hyped up as it really deserves to be. The retro-inspired indie 2D platforming boom of the 2010s, I think, was really ushered in by Mega Man, and it's ironic that that same boom seems to have kind of overshadowed Mega Man 11. Cuphead and Hollow Knight actually came out the previous year of Mega Man 11, and the Hollow Knight console port came out only a couple months before Mega Man 11. Celeste came out the same year as Mega Man 11, so this was a really stacked time for 2D platformers with dynamic gameplay. And those games, while I think Mega Man 11 does have a great artistic direction, those games have an art direction that might be more immediately eye-catching, particularly Cuphead. People are superficial and quick to make judgments, or at least I know I can be that way. And this game has a somewhat simple, generic first impression to people that may have caused them to miss it and just not give it the second look. But I love those games, particularly Hollow Knight and Celeste, and I think Mega Man 11 is actually as good as those games. There's just as much depth here, just as much interesting and creative moments and cool art direction. It might not have music that is as good as those games, but I think Mega Man 11 is a very interesting game that really deserves a little more hype. It's also worth mentioning that Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze came out the same year on the Nintendo Switch. It had been out for 4 years on the Wii U, but I think many people missed it on that platform. And Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze seems to be super hyped up. And while it is a great game and I do love it, I think Mega Man 11 is just as good as it, if not better. And so it's just a stacked time, and there was just a lot of stuff that came out at the same time that just made people kind of look past Mega Man 11. And I hope that in the future, as more people review games and super players attempt to speedrun or go deeper into games, I think Mega Man 11 is a star game that really has a lot to offer. In terms of nostalgia, I completely missed Mega Man 11, but it's worth mentioning that this game really does seem almost like an idealized version of Mega Man, at least in the visual presentation, and it did kind of make me feel nostalgic for that kind of wonder and excitement that I had for Mega Man when I was younger. And again, I am personally biased towards the Mega Man series. The channel is called Mega Fan, and so I definitely enjoyed this game a little bit more just because I do love Mega Man so much. In conclusion, I'll restate that the game maybe has a generic first impression, especially compared to its peers, the games that came out at the same time. But I think Mega Man 11 is a true classic action platformer. It's as good as any other game in the series, except the music. The music I would say is not the best in the series. It's a little bit forgettable, but in terms of gameplay, Mega Man 11 really nails it. The double gear system is unique within the franchise, and I think just unique within 2D action platforming. The Robot Master weapons are dynamic and cool and visually striking. There's just so much on the table with Mega Man 11 and so many good things. The pros way outweigh any of the cons. The gameplay is totally awesome, and as a fan, I'm gonna go with a 10 out of 10 for Mega Man 11. You know, the only real misstep here is the music, but the music's not bad. I don't think it subtracts from the package. I think what's available here with Mega Man 11 is great. I'm so relieved that the newest game in the series is so good and really a top tier classic Mega Man game. So let me know in the comments down below, what do you think of Mega Man 11? Do you like it? Do you hate it? Did you miss it like me initially and now you're coming back to it? I think it's a great game. I think it deserves to be spoken of and played and held in a high regard in the same way that games like Cuphead or Hollow Knight are. And yeah, I just loved Mega Man 11. This is the last classic Mega Man game for me to review for now. Hopefully there are more classic Mega Man games coming out in the years to come, but for now this is it. So yeah, I guess you'll see what I'll do next on the channel. I really appreciate all the likes and subscribes and comments, even those of you who disagree with me. I appreciate it all. Thanks so much for checking out the channel. Thanks so much for liking Mega Man, and I hope you all have a great day. Thank you. Bye.